Hello, and welcome to the North Asia Cape Need to Know series. I'm Amber Older. The North Asia Cape is committed to helping New Zealand businesses internationalize in China, Japan, and Korea. As part of this commitment, we host a monthly series of expert talks. Recently, the North Asia Cape and the Korea-New Zealand Business Council co-hosted a presentation by Simon Appleton. He's the CEO of Eastern Bridge Limited and Executive Director of the Korea-New Zealand Business Council. Simon's talk was titled The Forgotten Miracle, the South Korean Economy, Innovations and Opportunities for New Zealand. Simon Appleton joins me now to discuss the key points of his presentation. Welcome, Simon.
Hello, welcome, thank you.
So let's start with the title of your talk. What makes South Korea's economy miraculous, and why has it been forgotten?
Well, miraculous certainly. When you look at the modern history of South Korea, go back a few decades, and their economy was one of the lowest in the world. After the Korean War, the country was obliterated, absolutely destroyed. It wasn't until the sort of the 1980s, 1990s that the economy really developed quickly. Interestingly enough, up until the 1970s, North Korea was the wealthy Korea. Anyway, since the 1980s or 1990s, really, the South Korean economy has grown rapidly, and I don't think a lot of the world, certainly not New Zealand businesses, have really caught on to this. They know about Korea, but they don't really understand the size and scale of the economy.
Even though it's obviously been touted for 5 years in a row, Bloomberg has ranked South Korea as the most innovative economy in the world. It's New Zealand's 6th largest export economy, and we've had a free trade agreement with South Korea since 2015. So why are these significant trade challenges still in place?
I mean, I think to partially it's their neighbours. So they're a victim of the success of the wider region. So you've got China, obviously, the world's 2nd largest economy, right next door. You've got Japan, the world's 3rd largest economy, on their other side. So when people think about Asia, they usually focus on China.
And I suppose that also reinforces the idea of the miracle, in that it hasn't been swallowed up entirely by these super economies all around them.
You're absolutely right. I mean, South Korea is fairly small when you compare that with their neighbours. I mean, geographic size, you've got Russia as well, throw them in. You've got America off their coast. Yet South Korea has survived, and it's survived for thousands of years.
So what can be done to overcome or at least mitigate the trade challenges that we face?
I just think it's ongoing education. So talking to businesses about the opportunities there, just showing businesses what is the opportunity, where is the opportunity, and also providing more support to businesses that are wanting to go into South Korea. If you look at China, there's a lot of support. There's a lot of intermediary companies which support businesses go to China, but not really the same scale, nowhere near the same scale when you're looking at South Korea.
And why is that?
I think the New Zealand-China Free Trade Agreement happened obviously quite early on, and so there's been that developing over the years. The perception of China is that it's the market for everything, and it is a massive market. It's huge, and I just think people get blindsided by it.
Well, so the reality is we have around 30,000 Koreans living in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. We have nearly 100,000 Korean tourists visiting here every year. We have a student body who come here to learn, and their economic value is second only to students from Saudi Arabia. So there still seems to be a misunderstanding or misconceptions around modern South Korean life, and certainly that extends to business. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely true. And when you mention these statistics, international students or the migrant communities living in New Zealand, they're generally focused in very small pockets of New Zealand. So Auckland, obviously, I think it's 87% of Korean international students choose to stay study in Auckland. Very few make it out into the regions. With the migrant communities, the majority of them live in Auckland, the North Shore. There's also communities in small communities in Christchurch and Wellington, but very few that live out across the regions. So there's not much interaction between Kiwis in the regions and Korean people.
And this lack of awareness, this lack of connection, and these misconceptions obviously have some impact on the way we even approach business with South Korea.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So, I mean, with the New Zealand Korea Business Council, we are running a series of workshops, and we're trying to get out into the regions and talk to smaller communities, business communities, and just showing them that there is alternative markets for them to consider when they're looking at exporting. Show them that Korea is an option, a viable option.
So currently, what are our greatest strengths in terms of New Zealand exports to South Korea?
Yes, well, interestingly enough, since the free trade agreement was signed in 2015, our value of trade has not really changed. It's roughly 2 billion in exports and 2 billion in imports. It's quite balanced. But it's concerning the fact that it hasn't changed. You'd think that it would have grown. What is interesting though is I think it's a 38% growth in food and beverage. So that's where our opportunity lies. It's the food and beverage area. I'm particularly excited about the opportunities for the wine sector. I mean, New Zealand is well known as a wine producer. I think it's the 10th largest supplier of wine in South Korea. There's no reason why we shouldn't be far higher up the list, maybe third. But it's up to the wine producers to pick up and make a concerted effort to go into the market.
Is it likely that these investments will change as South Koreans become more westernized in their diet, in their engagement with Western cultures, in their product consumption? Are these the kind of opportunities that you referenced in the title of your talk?
Yes. So, I mean, when I lived in Korea in 2005, it was always a real struggle to find authentic Western food. It was always just a pizza shop or possibly a pasta shop. There wasn't that much depth. And I remember in my talk I spoke about trying to find New Zealand wine. Back to wine, and I had to take a subway and then a bus to find a specialty wine shop. It took me 45 minutes just to find a New Zealand bottle of wine.
Which you did.
Which eventually I did. That's not the case now. So now it's very easy to find Western food. It's easy to find New Zealand wine, but there's still a lot of scope for this to continue and grow. As Korean tastes continue to change and evolve, there'll be increasing opportunities for New Zealand food and beverage producers.
So how do we do that?
Yes, I think a big part of it is around education and providing suitable information. So I've spoken to Koreans that are coming into New Zealand with an interest in setting up a business or investing, and there's a huge gap of knowledge, absence of knowledge, which for a Kiwi is, I guess, quite common. We just know it. Things like, what is the minimum wage? How much would a power cost? But for a lot of Koreans that are coming in, this is all stuff that they don't know. So for a Kiwi, if you're looking to attract investment from Korea, you've really got to ask yourself, you've got to say to yourself, we don't know what they don't know, and put everything down. I think communication's also very important. Things get lost in translation. So it's important that things are communicated in Korean, if possible. Communicated very simply and very clearly. No room for ambiguity.
So we're talking about some fundamental cultural competencies that will support and enhance business outcomes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think New Zealand, we're not doing too badly when it comes to trade with South Korea, but there's obviously room for improvement. It's important that New Zealand companies understand the Korean market. It's important that New Zealand companies, if they are genuinely interested in selling to Korea, that they are prepared to spend some money. So do some market research, get into market, learn about the potential customers. Also, Korea is dominated by a lot of really large companies, chaebols, conglomerates. And so if you're looking at importing into South Korea, maybe going and meeting with some of these large trading companies in South Korea. Working with them can sometimes be slow and can be bureaucratic, but once you get in, then they can sort out the sales, the distribution, the marketing, everything. So they're very powerful partners to have if you can win them over.
Simon, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.